Hey, Jamie.
Uh, hey, I'm so sorry. I have a brand new computer because there's a new Mac. I got to buy it. And I realized I never opened Zoom before in this particular.
Not a problem.
But the picture's looking awful good on this nice new shiny iMac, I got to say.
Lovely. It looks good to me too.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of stuff. Are you a Mac man yourself, or
No, I'm just PC to be honest, but
really?
Yeah, I know. I think you'd be disgusted by that.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I remember, like, there's this guy who was my first AD on several movies, and when stuff came out, I was all Mac, but he became production manager, and so PCs were serious, and Macs were like doorstops.
Right.
And where is he now? Where are you now?
I'm
London,
in Leicester.
town?
Do you know Leicester in the UK?
I don't talk about London for a lot of reasons. Even before Her Majesty's passing, I am a big Anglophile, and also probably before you were born, there was the famous British invasion. What's his face, who became head of David? Chariots of Fire. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Oh, David Putnam. Yeah, and I have Alzheimer's. A lot of my favorite directors who directed Evita and Robert De Niro, The Devil.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Yeah, and is he still with us?
I think so. Yeah. I couldn't swear on that, but I believe so.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary thing.
I like people like Nick Rogue as well and stuff. I don't, you know.
Yeah.
Fantastic film. Don't look now, especially.
It was Putnam, I guess, who, when he won the Oscars, the British are coming, and some play on the revolution. I don't know. But the real irony, I will not go off free associating, but being such an Anglophile and having seen every BBC film ever made, and of course you can get the app and pay for it, including, and I have a master's degree from USC Cinema, the Harvard of film schools, and they're showing me restored footage, and it's Queen Victoria getting into a carriage, smiling like laughing.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there saying, no, is this Pixar? There's no film cameras with Queen Victoria.
No.
That's how much I knew.
That's incredible.
But man, their library just is breathtaking.
Yeah, I have to say, Jamie, by the way, you're looking very well.
Oh, really?
Compared to... I mean, you had the beard and everything last time I saw you. Well, you still got a bit there.
Oh, yeah. When was that? Where was that?
That was just on YouTube footage that I've watched.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm in constant flux. And if you really want insight into my psychological state, look at pictures of me at the premiere of 50 Shades Darker.
Okay.
And then me at the premiere in Paris, this extravaganza for the last one, Freed. Right. And I look radically different because the first one got released and I hated the movie so much. I was a fat pig. But by the time, and I knew I had to go back and edit the other one, which made no sense. But then when the first one did its thing, I kind of surrendered to it and said, okay, I don't get it, but other people do. So in the premiere in Paris, I'm looking all trim and full of, I love the movie and I'm analyzing its meaning. Bullshit. But anyway, what are we doing?
30th anniversary of Glengarry Glen Ross, wasn't it? So, I mean, it's one of my favorite films of all time. I absolutely adore it. And obviously, that 1001 movies you must see before you die also includes it in there. It's obviously a huge.
Does it? I didn't know that.
Did you not? Right. Okay. I don't know if it's in
Yeah.
every edition, but it's definitely in a couple of editions anyway. So yeah. So obviously it won a Pulitzer Prize in David Mamet won a Pulitzer Prize in 1984. So was it kind of daunting to take that on, because obviously you knew how successful it had been in that form?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Not at all. But it's something, and I get asked to go speak at different film schools, but especially SC, and everything is at the end, how did you get you first? And my answer always was, because I was brain dead. I was living in a delusional world, and quite seriously, where it never occurred to me that it was an effort, because I'd always done very well scholastically. So I was into school, went undergrad in psychology. I was going to be. Then I changed to film, went to USC, did very well. And then I graduated and got a job in the field I studied for, which was to direct a movie.
Sure.
But only recently, because of social media, I'm seeing on Instagram stuff I'm tagged in, like behind the scenes, things I've never seen. And when I saw a picture of myself on the set of Reckless, standing there, about 12 years old, and behind me is the entire crew, who a hell of a lot older. It's my first movie, and I'm standing there like I should be, like telling people what to do.
Right.
Because I didn't know any better. But now, if I think about it, trying to get your first movie and then directing it, I'd be really intimidated now.
Of course. And you worked with some huge stars from very early on as well.
Yes, which is another thing that I always, and I feel proud now that I've worked with people who, you're going to work with them, and the agency starts saying, he's a monster, starting with Sean, who
right.
was living on my couch. But Pacino, Hackman, so many people, they're going to be nightmares. They're going to be nightmares. Not once ever
really
did any actor, except maybe a day player, make a snide remark. And I'll just say really quickly, so we'll stay in Glengarry. Gene Hackman who's retired now, but probably was #1 on the most wanted, hated list by directors, because he did not like directors and was very famous for. But that I didn't get that gene or something. I've always liked actors, because I feel like I need them to channel something through. And when they're great actors, and of course, not every director, that's their main focus. As a matter of fact, Gene had just come off a movie that he had a part in, directed by Sam Raimi, Sharon Stone and Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And the famous story was that they had started shooting, and Sam Raimi was, he does his thing, comes up to Gene Hackman with storyboards showing Gene Hackman. So then on this line, you put your right hand in this, and doing that. And Gene looked at it, and then apparently by an eyewitness calmly said, "Can I see that?" And he took it and he threw it as far as he could and said, "You're out of your fucking mind." But I agree with him. The idea that I would sit there and I would imagine how Gene Hackman should move is like insane. He's Hackman. When we worked together, after his first week of working, and I'm going to my car, PA says, "Gene asked if you stop off." First thing I think, I'm going to get yelled at. I open his trailer, and he's way back there. And he says, I'm going to cry now, because I didn't at the time. And he just stutters out, I just wanted to say that this week has been really good. And thanks. And I was like, okay, bye.
Fantastic.
And I swear to God, it never seeped in. the movie was a flop. I don't give a fuck. It was Popeye Doyle. So like,
all directors have flops and successes, don't they?
Yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't really matter.
To Glengarry, obviously, that was always and continues to be, well, it must have been a Hollywood nightmare. Back, fights, zero.
Right.
On my unborn children, zero. Because I was so instinctually actor friendly, because they didn't teach directing actors at USC. But I figured out it's not a matter of the actor understanding my language. I want to learn the actor's language, and every actor has a different language.
Right.
And so I always get to know the main people. So we're communicating through, like, if you go have a beer and hang out, talking conversationally, then you know each other a little bit, so you know how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
But on Glengarry, I can guarantee you, when several of them in the same scene, the idea on any film that I would yell out a direction to one of them so that all the other actors heard is obscene.
That was going to be one of my questions, actually, because obviously you got Jack Lemmon, you've got.
So you have to, and on those scenes when they're all there, I had to run to each one of them.
Yeah, of course.
Because Al is uber method, and he don't want to talk about on what line does you move the cigarette, because he's and Jack Lemmon is, what do you want me to do on this line, and should I do this? So that was the biggest.
Yeah.
But because of that, and because of the script, because 99% of friction on making a movie is this script.
Of course, yeah.
With the cliche, my character would never say this. However, if you do Glengarry with a Pulitzer Prize, no one's going to say that. So there was no conversation of any of that. Plus, we had this luxury, which would never happen now, of 3 full weeks of rehearsal. So we really got to, and I did it in a great way, where I started out meeting just one-on-one in general. And then if, like Moss and Jack Lemmon, a scene that's not there, but happened the night before the break-in, we rehearsed that scene so that the both of them shared a common agreement of what was said. And I never ever was going for in rehearsal that mammoth music, because I felt that's technical, that will come.
Yeah, sure.
So the first couple of times when they're all in the room together and you rehearse action, and it's like, yikes. No, everybody's talking in a different rhythm, and it was like, okay, we have to shut down.
Yeah.
But it was a matter of like practicing a rhythm. So we just did it over and over and over again until they started talking naturally,
right,
mammoth-esque.
Okay.
That was, and so I'm being very honest, not unnecessarily humble, because I'm not, it wasn't very hard.
Okay.
It was kind of all self-evident, which you kind of don't know while you're doing it. But like, who was cast? Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
He came at us,
right,
asking for an audition.
Oh wow. Because it was Jack who I mean, they were all fantastic, obviously, but it was Jack who blew me away the most in that film, because he was just.
Well, now I think if Jack Lemmon wasn't in the film, it wouldn't be what it was. But I love that about movies, and it's no movie, no great movie was planned that way. Right. Every great movie contains a series of accidents, compromises, things that just come out of the blue.
Sure.
And so the idea that the cast was so star-studded, I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
Because, it's always fascinates me, and I'm from Staten Island, and I've have a bunch of people I know who happen to be famous. But one of the most extreme examples, when Sean, I first met him in the 80s, and he was sleeping on my couch, and I went with him to the set of Material Girl because Sean knew the first AD, and we are going to check out this chick, Madonna.
Yeah.
So then she starts coming by, and Madonna's there, and her hair's pulled up, eating Chinese food out of it. She's not famous. I'm not sitting there looking at her like she's famous, but then we go out to dinner. She goes in the bathroom, fixes her hair. We go to a restaurant, and at the height of it,
Yeah, of course.
And suddenly she's famous. But you can't be famous unless there are fans to reflect that fame. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. I was there when it was the transition from the album before. I mean, she had an album called Madonna, but she wasn't yet Madonna.
Yeah.
And the idea of transformation into it hadn't been invented, so I didn't pay attention. And then, of course, Like a Virgin, MTV, that shot, and that was big. Yeah. However, the thing I feel great about, and I will say, of everything I've ever filmed, from my student film to everything, including Glengarry, I feel that my video for Papa Don't Preach with Madonna and the one for A Close Range, Live to Tell, are two of the closest, most auteurish things I've ever made.
Fantastic.
But again, on what is, I got to tell you, to live where in 2022 there are young influences like this 19-year-old Black girl in Lagos, and they're on YouTube, and they look at old school videos that they've heard of, and artists they've heard of but they've never seen, so they play the video and watch it live, and then everybody comments.
Yes, I've seen that kind of thing. Yeah.
And so I'm watching Papa Don't Preach from a million years ago.
Yeah.
And this girl is like bopping to it and loving it. But I'll end with this, because you're a smart guy and you might figure it out. All the people who write comments, 99.9% of them think when she says, "I'm keeping my baby," she's going to keep her boyfriend, not that she's pregnant.
No. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it's extra. Then you read down the comments, and finally some woman says, "Youngsters, she's pregnant."
I always thought that was pretty obvious myself, but
well, that's why I want to put it in people's heads, because I love psychology, and I love trying to understand what shifted in the culture. I mean, if it was about gender stuff, then you'd say, okay, it's a different environment. You see it differently.
Yeah.
But pregnancy hasn't changed. So what's different?
Well, yeah, very true.
So anyway, Glengarry Glen Ross.
Glengarry. I mean, I was taken aback on the rewatch that I did recently, that Alec Baldwin was only actually in it for about 5 minutes, and I was stunned by that, because I remember him as a main character.
Well, that's the other thing. I happened to see it now because on IMDb it popped up. Do you know how much money Glengarry made in its theatrical run? No. Worldwide, $11 million.
Right.
It was a staggering flop.
Yeah.
And
not critically, though.
Sorry?
Not. It wasn't a critical flop.
No, I mean, my humble. I grew up in New York. Vincent Canby was God. And the night before, when the publicist handed me Vincent Canby's review, I'm going to cry now. Yeah. And it was rapturous, and said, all these people, these actors are in the big time, and James Foley has just entered it. Right. And it was Vincent Canby, who I read reviews for Serpico and Dog Day. And that was orgasmic.
Yeah.
But there isn't a critic alive now that nobody knows who critics are. It's Rotten Tomatoes.
Mark Kermode in the UK, he's one.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So he's desired, and of course that part didn't exist in the play. And do you know that? And Mamet did it on his own because the genesis was the guy who financed it was this wealthy real estate company in the DC area. And they saw the play. And to this day, real estate companies rent the movie as entertainment for the employees who love it because it's about them. Wow. And they laugh and they don't get any darkness about it.
Right. That's amazing.
So that guy contacts Mamet and out of the blue and directly and says, I want to make a movie. And Mamet said, which at the time was an unheard of price. He just said, give me $1 million and I'll do it. And this guy said, okay. So this Mamet went off by himself, wrote a script and added Alec. Now, for me, I don't think it's just me, but I think it's a major enhancement. It's like his next draft.
Definitely. Yeah.
And of course, people go to revivals of it and walk out saying, where's Alec Baldwin? But the fact that David wrote it and that scene, Alec's stuff is not the whole movie, Glengarry, but his scene and Papa Don't Preach are on this list because they became iconic.
Yeah.
Which is, you can't experience that unless you get old. But let me tell you, man, when I was watching SNL, I was pretty stoned, and Alec is the host. It's a Christmas thing. And they do this skit, you've seen it, Always Be Cobbling.
Yes.
And I'm watching it with my friends and dead serious. I thought, what's the age of the audience of SNL? You can't do a spoof on something that the audience doesn't know what you're spoofing. And I was absolutely thought they were crazy. But now I can't, can't talk to anybody and they meet me and they start saying whole paragraphs of Alec's thing. Yes. Coffees for closers, blah, blah, blah. I'm sick of it.
Do you have a particular favorite scene in the film?
I do. And it's a scene where it's still, in my mind, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And I wish Jack was alive because I would love now to ask each of them separately what they thought was going on in that scene.
Right.
Because I'm not sure what they thought. But to me, it was the most tragic, ugly assault. Ricky Roma, I felt, just mocked Shelley with such viciousness.
Oh, definitely.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, I'm not David Fincher in terms of compositions being, so I go more on what I feel. And all it is them talking, and at a certain time, the thing was on a dolly and it wasn't supposed to move. But I looked at the dolly grip and I said, start creeping back.
Oh,
right in the middle of the scene. And it crept back slowly. And now I look at it and I think that moment is one of my, few verified classic cinematic where camera and story are in sync.
Yeah, superb.
That's my moment. And Alex screaming at everybody. I think I just heard it too much.
Yeah. And the weather actually played a huge part in the film as well. I would say that the rain in that is almost like, I mean, it's nothing like Blade Runner, obviously, but it's like it had that kind of bleakness about it at the same time. So
that's another thing I'm really proud of. I mean, I can start telling you what I'm not proud of on a whole lot of films. But there are things that I am proud of, and that was my idea. Because wait, where are you? You're in London. I don't know, why did I think you're in Chicago?
I mean Leicester, which is like 100 miles north of London, but yeah, not far.
I gotta get back there. But I lost what I was going to say.
Sorry, the rain. We were talking about the
the rain. That, of course, the play was set in Chicago, but we didn't want to go there. And I think back now, I never talked to David Mamet about it, but we shot it in Queens. And there's a big studio there because obviously most of the movies on this set were designed by a production designer who has not gotten her due, Jane Muskie, who's done a million things. Yeah. But her design of that set is so deceptively, looks like it's just thrown together. Nobody designed it. That is perfection.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was so much detail in that. One of the biggest things being their desks. How are the desks going to be arranged? Whose desk is where? And the office is in the front where Spacey is in the glass. And if you notice, everyone's desk is facing forward except one.
Yes.
Ricky Roma.
Yeah, that's right.
His desk is like that. Now, I'm not Sam Raimi. I didn't sit at home making storyboards and figure that out. It was spending time moving the desks around, and all the actors were there and they're trying different things out.
Yeah.
And Al didn't say do that, but Al mumbled something in his language, which you really have to talk to him a lot to understand.
Yeah.
Because he's not specific, but he says something that triggers it. Yeah. And so it became that. And now, again, that's something I look at, like The Rain, because I wanted there to be a cinematic movement. Because movement is a change of, when it goes from raining to not raining, that changes the environment. Yeah. And just somebody posted the very opening thing in super high def. I don't know where they get the footage of Lemon in the Chinese restaurant and running across the street into the office, and it's pouring rain and he has his hat.
Yes.
I saw that and I thought, Jack Lemmon, and he was so nice to me. He got me in the academy way before I would be. And when I see pictures now of me on the set, and I'm directing Jack Lemmon, because I'm on drugs, I guess. I forgot about Billy Wilder, but Jack Lemmon's looking at me, listening. Now, again, if anybody showed me that picture, and it's like becoming aware you're that guy who was on that wire in the Twin Towers. What do you call that? Yeah. You can't become conscious of it.
Of course.
That what did Billy Wilder say to him? That doesn't exist. He's Jack. But when you see a picture, I look so self-confident.
Right.
And I think, man, what a good actor, because I sure didn't feel internally like that. But it's of enormous pride.
Yeah.
And
would you rate it top of all of the movies that you've made? I mean, you did another one which was hugely critically successful, After Dark, My Sweet, which was very popular with I think Roger Ebert gave it a
yeah.
huge.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is, I'll tell you what my movies are. That's one of them.
Yeah.
And that may be because the films that I've made is on two different levels. One is, I'm aware that Glengarry is 98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And that Close Range is like maybe 89.
Yeah.
And people know those movies, but After Dark is much less known. But nobody tells me, I turn on YouTube, and you know who owns YouTube? Google. And you know what? Google knows who I am. Yes. So on my homepage are videos you might be interested in. And there's I just lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Things that I'm really proud of.
After Dark, My Sweet, we were talking about.
Oh yeah, After Dark, My Sweet. Up comes a brand new trailer for After Dark, My Sweet, recut as if it's a 2022, very modern. And I find out that Lionsgate has bought it and launched a global streaming, but included its theatrical premiere in the country of France. So,
oh right.
French news crews came and interviewed me, and it opened really big in France. And I mean, and I like sucked Jean-Luc Godard's dick. So France is like, you know, I'm Mr. Nouveau Vague. And, but that movie is my most personal is not a good enough word. It is a movie that I am physically expressing myself so directly. And I'll drop this on you only because I only reflected 20 years later. I met Rachel Ward. And did you ever see pictures of Rachel Ward when she was young and she was a supermodel?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And, you know, the daughter of the second born, aristocratic.
Yeah.
And when her father died, because she rejected all that and married Brian Brown and went to Australia where, fuck the monarchy and aristocrats. And then her father dies and all the estate goes to Rachel's extremely stupid younger brother.
Right.
And she doesn't get a penny. She doesn't need it. And he doesn't offer anything.
Oh, wow.
And I was so proud of her. She wrote about Primogenitor, and the Times of London published it. And Rachel became, but anyway, back up to focus. You ever know who Hercules Belville was? And he worked with Jeremy Thomas. You know Jeremy Thomas?
Yeah, Jeremy Thomas, yeah.
Hercules, a long time, sadly died, friend of mine. And he met this beautiful British supermodel, Rachel, who had to be the most beautiful woman in the world. And for some reason, me and Rachel got together. I remember at the time thinking, she's way out of my league. But now I'm 1,000 years old and I see pictures of myself at 27 and I think, maybe not.
Oh, right.
Why didn't somebody tell me I was fucking handsome?
Hindsight, as they say.
But then that breaks up. She goes off to Australia, has 2 kids. I want to make After Dark. I've just made Who's That Girl, which was a galactic flop.
Yeah.
Although now it is iconic.
Yes, of course.
It is not a flop anymore, but it sure was then. So this tiny company wanted to make After Dark my suite for $6 million. I read it, and for some reason I connected with it personally, like it was me. Jason was playing me. Then I say, I want to hire Rachel Ward.
Yeah.
Now, I spent 20 years in psychoanalysis, and I did that without being conscious of what I was doing. Because she wasn't hot at the moment. She was married in Australia, and her husband was not pleased with her playing in these sex things.
Right. Okay.
Patrick. But that movie, if you watch it, is the most storyboarded. That's not the right word. It's the movie where I didn't collaborate with the DP about the compositions.
Right. Yeah.
So when you watch that movie, it is my most personal cinema, and the casting of Jason Patrick, who was a Greek god, and you see how it's filmed, and that's me, not him. What happened to him?
Well, well, I have to say to all of our readers and viewers that you have to check out those two films without any doubt about that.
So those films are essential for me. That's what it is. Yeah. When something, Poppin' and Preach, that movie, At Close Range is a close second, because I was Sean, and it's literally like they're physical and sensual, while Glengarry is not physical or sensual.
Yeah.
So,
sure. And
you don't. Where am I in Glengarry? Don't tell me I'm basic.
I think I was said in my emails.
That motherfucker has soiled 2 of my platinum credits, and I sue his ass.
Well, you must be due an Academy Award soon.
Yeah, I mean, I read something where supposedly he's making a movie in some Polish weirdness, but
is that what I remember you talking to me, saying that you were talking to Christophe Waltz about is he going to be doing something with you then, or
Christophe?
Yeah.
Or
is it just you just having a chat?
No, I am involved with Christophe Waltz, but how did you connect that to Kevin Spacey?
I didn't connect it. I was just sorry if you found I was just because there's only a minute left of the Zoom call, so I was just asking you whether you were doing something with him. That was all.
Oh yeah, no. There's this incredibly great project I have stuck with for a long time, and luckily I didn't need the dough because those crappy movies made me rich.
Yeah.
So there's a project called Reagan Gorbachev, which is centered around the historic Iceland summit in Reykjavik, where they came close to let's get rid of all nukes.